Morning, everyone. Good morning, Diana. Good morning, Nangjiang. Good morning, Hakan.
Good morning.
How are you doing today?
I am fine, thank you. And
could you please turn on your webcam?
Sorry?
Could you please turn on your webcam?
Yeah.
Hello, good morning.
Hello.
So, how are you doing today?
Thank you, I am very fine.
Okay. So, which country are you from?
I'm from Turkey.
Okay.
Turkey, yes.
So, how is the weather in Turkey right now?
Sorry?
How is the weather in Turkey right now?
I will be doing video recording presentation.
Okay. Okay. Diana, could you hear me? Good morning, Sir Albert.
Hi.
Hi,
Oh,
how are
here I should say good afternoon here.
Okay, good afternoon.
Yeah, it's around 3:30 now here.
Okay. So from which country are you from?
Oh, I'm in Tokyo.
Tokyo. Okay.
Yeah.
Tokyo, Japan. Okay.
Oh, yes, yes.
Okay. So how is the weather in Japan right now?
It's very hot. And the recently it's been very, very hot. Yeah.
Okay.
Almost every day.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you are experiencing summer there.
So the good thing is, the semester is over. Was just over last week. So we just stay home, try not to go outside, and had air conditioner going on the whole day. I mean,
holiday. Okay. Vacations are going on.
yes.
Okay. Good morning, Safa. Good morning, Toba. Could you hear me? I would like to request all the participants to turn on their webcams and to rename their Zoom accounts with their full English name. Good morning, Nan Jiang. Nan Michael Jiang.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing today?
Good. I'm very tired.
Tired. Okay. So what time is it in your country?
So, I'm in US right now. It's like 2:30 in the morning.
In the morning. Okay. It's 2:30 a.m.?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, we are really apologize for the inconvenience. You
Yeah,
have to
it's
get
fine.
it.
It's fine.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So how is the weather in US right now?
It's pretty good.
Pretty good.
It's not like very hot, and yeah, but it like rains a lot over here, so I don't really like that.
Okay. Not a rainy person. Okay. Diana, good morning. Safa, good morning. Safa, could you hear me? Zikra. Good morning, Zikra. I hope I am pronouncing your name correctly.
Yeah, you're right. That's my name.
So could you turn on your webcam?
Okay, wait a second.
Okay. Good morning, Naja Al Mohammed. Okay. Good morning, Zikra. How are you doing?
Good morning. I'm good.
Good. Okay. So which country are you from?
I'm from Indonesia.
Indonesia. Okay.
Yeah.
Jakarta? From Jakarta?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm from Jakarta.
Okay. So how is the weather in Indonesia?
So it's currently really hot right here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What time is it right there right now?
And now it's 1:30 o'clock.
Okay. In afternoon? Afternoon. Okay. Good morning, Safa. Good morning, Ehsan Kadim. I hope I'm saying your name right. Ehsan Kadim Ebet. Good morning, Toba Ozedin. Please turn on your webcams. Good morning, Najal Mohammadi. Could you hear me?
Good morning, dear. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing today?
Alhamdulillah.
Okay. So could you turn on your webcam?
Sorry, I was not prepared to
Okay.
open it. Okay.
Okay. Okay. So whenever you are prepared, you can, turn on your webcam so that we can
Inshallah.
interact, in a,
Inshallah.
okay. So your group presenter, Safa,
Yes.
yeah, she is also with us, but I couldn't hear her.
Maybe there is a technical issue because she called me before.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So Dr. Najaf, where are you from?
UAE.
UAE. Okay. So how is the weather right now there?
Too hot.
Too hot. Okay.
Yes.
Mostly UAE has a hot climate. I have heard that.
Yes. And summer, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Good morning, Tuba. Tuba Ozedin. Could you hear me? Good morning, Ehsan Kadim Ebed. Please turn on your webcam. So I think we have all the participants with us right now. Maybe one or two will be joining shortly. I would like to request again to all participants to turn on their webcams and so that we can interact and to rename their Zoom accounts with their full English name. So starting with the conference, I would like to welcome all of you to Eurasia Research Online Live International Conference. The conference is about to start. Please wait. We will begin shortly. Okay, so we are expecting 2 to 3 participants more. So I would like to start with Sir Albert. Albert, sir, would you please introduce yourself to the fellow participant?
Yeah, I think I sent the video there. You can play the video or you want?
No,
I'm
just
sorry.
a short, short introduction about you so that the fellow participants can know about you.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Yes. Hi, my name is Albert Chow. Greetings from Tokyo. It's very hot here. And I've been Tokyo actually since the year 2000. Before that, I was in Canada.
Okay.
And of course, basically, I received my education. I worked there.
Okay.
And my interest is intercultural communication.
Okay.
Which is a bit related to my very short talk today. I'm very happy to be with you today, although I have an engagement in about 2 hours, but I will try to be with you as much as possible.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure for us to have you with us today. Diana Noviarini, please introduce yourself to the fellow participants. Diana, could you hear me? Okay, I think there is some technical issue. So I would like to request Hakan, please introduce yourself to the fellow participants. Hakan Sifti. Could you hear me, Hakan? Okay, so Let's move on to Zikra. Please introduce yourself to the fellow participants.
Okay, so good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, all of the attendees and also participants. First of all, I would like to introduce myself. I am Zikra Farisi, as one of the final year student of School of Business and Management in Indonesia, one of the School of Business and Management in Indonesia. My interest is on supply chain and purchasing and also international business.
Okay. Thank you so much, Zikra. Nan Jiang, would you please introduce yourself to the fellow participants?
Okay. My name is Michael. I'm from China, and currently I'm a senior at the Stony School in Long Island, New York.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much for introducing yourself. Hakan, could you hear me now? I think there are some technical glitches with some of the participants. Tuba, could you hear me now? Okay. Dr. Naja, please introduce yourself to the fellow participants. Dr. Naja, could you hear me?
Yes, hi. My name is Najah Mohammadi. I'm Director of Curriculum and Instruction and the College of Education, UAE, UAE University. I'm currently working as a researcher in language in the same university. I was recently graduated in the 2022.
Okay. Thank you so much for introducing yourself.
Thank you.
Please wait for a moment. We will begin with the event shortly. Okay, so we are about to start the conference. Oh, Ehsan, could you hear me now? Ehsan Kadim Abed. Okay. So today we have presentations and participants from 11 countries around the world: Japan, India, Turkey, Iraq, Latvia, Kuwait, UAE, Indonesia, Sri Lanka, Australia, and USA. We are broadcasting this conference on Facebook Live on multiple pages of Eurasia Research. The links for the live session are shared in the chat box. You may refer the links to your friends, colleagues, and your family members. Before starting with the conference, I would like to explain Eurasia Research to all of you in a nutshell. With over more than 1 million satisfied members and associates spread across the globe, Eurasia Research is a scholarly association who have been working for nearly a decade. Eurasia Research has organized several successful international conferences, workshops, and training programs at various reputed institutions and grand venues. Eurasia has been tirelessly working for research world and have not stopped their endeavors even during the COVID era, and have presented research community with an online platform which was safe and convenient method to continue their passion. We are an international committee of researchers, practitioners, students, and educationists who aim to bring together worldwide researchers and professionals, encourage intellectual development, and to create opportunities for networking and collaboration. These objectives are achieved through academic networking, meetings, conferences, workshops, projects, research publications, academic awards, and scholarships. Some of our highlights are that we provide scholarship to deserving candidates to promote students and research scholars to participate in the international conference. Young Researcher Scholarship is provided in the form of full registration fee waiver. We have vast experience of publishing papers for more than 7 years. Our associated journals publish original papers, review papers, conceptual framework, analytical and simulation models, case studies, empirical research, technical notes, and book reviews. We cater to more than 30 plus themes in the area of teaching and education and have registered ISSN and have following renowned indexing: Google Scholar, Crosscheck, Authenticate, Crossref, the Keepers Registry, Script, Portico, Road, Directory of Open Access Scholarly Resources, OAI PMH Registered Data Provider, PKP Index. We will soon be applying for Scopus too. We have a wide network of 100 plus internationally acclaimed keynote across the globe who share their knowledge and guidance with our participants with open hands. We have a large number of committee members and advisors who support us and guide us through their expert opinions and decision-making capabilities. We couldn't have thought of reaching here without them. We also encourage our participants to connect with more than 15K plus followers on our social media platform, where they can share their research and interest, join our Facebook group, and be a part of the discussions by researchers and academicians. We also have several collaborations with universities, colleges, and institutes to better serve all interested and like-minded intellectuals. With great enthusiasm and pride, we would like to announce our latest project, which is the Terra Fellow Program in Education. The program offers an opportunity to learn the key concepts and latest trends in the teaching industry from the academic stalwarts. We would like to share some of our past participant experience with you. Thank you for your patience and valuable time moving ahead with the conference. Good morning, Diana.
Good morning, Miss. How
Could
are
you
you
hear me
today?
now? I'm great.
Yes.
Thank you so much for asking.
Okay, you're welcome.
And how are you doing today?
Ladies and I'm fine, and I hope the rest of the participants is in good health and then with a lot of spirits to you all.
Thank you for your best wishes. So we are just continuing with the conference. Thank you, Diana, for joining us today.
Okay.
So moving ahead with the conference, I will be your today's conference host. My name is Ms. Divya Devnani. First, I would like to share our SSHRA President, Associate Professor Marek Matujan, Department of Entrepreneurship and Industrial Policy, Faculty of Management, University of Lodz, Poland.
Hello everyone, my name is Marek Mattejun, originally associated with the University of Łódź, Poland. I am the president of Social Science and Humanities Research Association. On behalf of my colleagues, advisory board and our members, it is a pleasure and an honor to welcome you to our international community. Social Science and Humanities Research Association, SSHRA, is promoted by Eurasia Research and aims to bring together worldwide researchers and professionals, encourage intellectual development and create opportunities for networking and scientific collaboration in the field of social science and humanities. These objectives are achieved through academic networking, meetings, workshops, projects, scientific publication, academic awards and scholarships. We create wonderful opportunities for sharing knowledge, research results and discussion at our interdisciplinary conferences organized in Asia, Europe and Africa, International Conference on Social Science and Humanities, as well as at the International Conference on Business, Economics, Language, Law and Psychology. We closely cooperate with internationally recognized universities and research organizations as our institutional partners. For our members, we offer inspiring scientific events, team-building activities, strong social media platform for networking, young researcher scholarships, as well as opportunities for publications in international journals. The driving force behind our success is the diversity of members and international advisory board who provide inspiration, ideas, efforts, and drive collaborations. Scholars, researchers, professionals, academic teachers and students are warmly invited to become a member of SSHRA and join our ever-growing network working for the benefit of research and society with the spirit of knowledge sharing, mutual respect and growth. Following these values, we kindly invite you to join our community and collaboration with us. As a member of SSHRA, you will be a part of progressive, comprehensive research association and play an absolutely essential role in helping us to enrich our scientific activities, maintain our long-standing commitment to the development of social science and humanities, and enhance our global impact. Thank you, and welcome to SSHRA International Community. Connect, collaborate, and co-create an outstanding future with us.
Thank you so much, Professor Marek Matujan. Now moving ahead with the conference. Next, I would like to introduce to you our eminent speaker. She has been our previous keynote speaker also, Paulina Moya Santiagos, PhD in Education Department of Cultural Communication and Media Institute of Education, University College London, UK. Let's see what she has to say.
Disadvantages. I would start with the disadvantages then. I would say like the lack of in-person interaction is something that I miss when presenting online, because casual conversations and spontaneous collaborations are harder to replicate in virtual settings, right? Presenting face-to-face reduces, of course, the technological issues. For example, now I am experiencing a technological issue, and this could be replicated in online presenting too. And yeah, I would say that's those are two disadvantages, but there are many advantages that I'd like to address very briefly. Basically, the accessibility and inclusivity, and also the cost effectiveness, because both are related. So online conferences remove geographical barriers, right? So they make easier for us, from around the world to attend these conferences. And without the need for travel, accommodation and other expenses, of course, that we can afford taking part in different conferences more often. There's a flexibility in scheduling, so we can participate or we can attend certain presentations based on our schedule or based on our busy day. We will, we are reducing environmental impact because we travel less, so we use fewer airplanes, and also because I think it's a great opportunity for networking. Absolutely. I would wholeheartedly encourage my friends and colleagues to attend an online conference. And I did that during the pandemic too. These conferences offer many benefits that make them valuable, and it is an accessible platform for academic engagement and knowledge exchange, right? So I will repeat some of the others. They are cost effective. There's more access to possibilities to attend these conferences. They are more inclusive because some people who might have some special educational needs can use different technological devices to translate, for example, what the presenter is saying. They can be more prepared at home. Also, these are very related to the previous one, but I think that we need to adapt to changing circumstances, especially when we are related in research and education. So I would say that embracing online conferences not only demonstrates our resilience, but also our willingness to keep involved with changing circumstances and our honest desire to have a positive impact in the world, in the academic world. Well, I need to say that I'm very, very happy with the TERA, TERA, the Teaching and Education Research Association. This is my third or fourth time presenting in one of your congresses. And I like it very much because it fosters academic excellence and collaboration. You have been so nice to me every time that I have questions or that I've faced some issues. I strongly believe that you are a well-organized conference. You planned everything in detail, and you also give time to reflect upon our own presentations. I always find it interesting to attend to some of your congresses because it's interesting research. So the quality of research presented was exceptional. It was inspiring too, especially for me, considering that I come from a very different background, thinking of South America, Chile, right? I liked that you provided me with a leaflet or a summary book where all the abstracts were there. So I think that was a thoughtful touch. And that's good because sometimes when you attend conferences, they want to give you like a summary of abstracts or the information of presenters. So it's more likely that you would forget. But with this in your mind, you would go back to read the summary and find the name of the researcher and the study that caught your attention. You also always select engaging topics to discuss. It's a strong networking opportunity. to interact with fellow academics for diverse backgrounds. I can see that you are committed to academic development, so that's why I keep participating in your Congress. And you are genuine. I think that your commitment is honest in terms of promoting intellectual growth, knowledge dissemination, and all the advancement possible in the field of teaching and education.
My name is Chiara Kalinadia. I am 21 years.
Thank you, Paulina, for sharing your feedback with us. Moving ahead with the conference, our next eminent speaker is Chiara Felnadia, School of Business and Management, Bandung Institute of Technology, Jakarta, Indonesia. She is one of our previous conference participants. Let's see what she has to say.
My name is Chiara Kalinadia. I am 21 years old and I am from Jakarta, Indonesia. I am an undergraduate student at Bandung Institute of Technology in Bandung, Indonesia. I find online conferences to be very suitable for me, and I can also receive lots of benefits through online conferences. First of all, it is because of the easy accessibility, where online conferences can break down geographical barriers, making it easier for people from all over the world to participate. And this increased accessibility promotes various diversity and allows individuals who might not have been able to travel to a physical conference before. And secondly, it is very cost effective, where online conferences have lower registration fees compared to physical ones, as they don't require expenses for venue booking, catering, travel, and also accommodations. This cost effectiveness can make conferences more accessible to individuals or organizations that has limited budget. And lastly, the flexibility of self. So online conferences, I think they often offer more flexibility of accessing recorded sessions and then enabling participants to watch presentations at their very convenient place and for better time management, actually. Therefore, I think online conferences is a very convenient choice for a lot of people, and it can also gain a wider range of people from across the world. Yes, of course, I would very recommend and suggest my friends and colleagues to attend an online conference. I would share and tell them about my experiences in attending online conferences, specifically from Eurasia, and let them know that it is a very exciting and interesting thing to experience and that they should also try attending one. As a first timer attending an online conference, I can say that it is a very good experience. So actually, I don't have that very significant feedback because I think the online conference that Eurasia has conducted previously has already met my expectations, and therefore I would want and I would wish for Eurasia to keep up and maintain the current performance and qualities so that more and more people would look up to Eurasia and also be more eager to attend and participate in future conferences. So yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Chiara, for your feedback. So moving ahead with the conference. So our conference schedule is divided into 3 sessions. First session will be keynote talk. Second session will be team activity and photo session. And session 3 will be technical talk. I would like to request all the participants to rename their Zoom account in their full name in English. This will help us to record your presence. You may ask your questions related to the presentations in the chat section while the presentations are still going on. All the certificates, receipts, and proceedings will be sent to the participants within a week on their mail IDs. The proceedings will include all the full papers and abstracts accepted for the conference. Moving ahead with the publication process. The publication process starts once the registration process is complete. The author needs to send their paper, consent forms, and reviewer details on the email ID given on the screen. The review reports will be sent to the author once the review process is over. The final stage of publication starts after receiving the revised papers from the authors. Please note that the publication process takes around 50 to 60 days after the conference dates if all the editorial guidelines are followed within the given deadline. So we will begin with the session 1 of our conference today. Our first keynote speaker of the day is Professor Albert R. Zoe, Professor of Language and Intercultural Communication Studies in the Department of Global Communication, Faculty of Global Studies, Musashino University, Japan. His topic is the rise of Chinese as a global language and its implications for language and intercultural communication. Albert R. Zoe is currently a professor of language and intercultural communication studies in the Department of Global Communication, Faculty of Global Studies, Musashino University, Japan. He lectures and researches on the language dimension of intercultural communication with a focus on language identity and interculturality. His research interests in recent years, including identity construction, reconstruction in multilingual, multicultural classroom settings, language and intercultural movements among Chinese, Japanese, and English, and global influence of the Chinese language. He can be reached at the given mail ID on the screen. We welcome you, Professor Albert.
Hi, greetings from Tokyo. My name is Albert Chow. Today, I'm very happy to have this opportunity to share with you some of the ideas related to my research in recent years. The topic for my talk today is the rise of Chinese as a global language and its implications for language and intercultural. English is playing a very important role in our life now. But we also notice that in the past decades, some languages have also gained importance. Among all these languages, the Chinese language stands out as it has especially drawn global attention. Since the number of learners and the number of second language speakers of Chinese have been increasing, and it's also because of China's global influence in trade, international politics, tourism, and finance is on the rise. Now, what is Chinese? Chinese is a language used as the official language and a common language for communication for 1.4 billion people in the People's Republic of China. We also know that it is spoken by many people with Chinese origin around the world, especially in Southeast Asian countries. In my talk today, I have a particular focus on the People's Republic of China, as we all know that its economic growth serves as the driving force for the rapid rise of interest in Chinese and Chinese culture around the world today. Now, the items to be discussed. I will outline the present global position of the Chinese language and discuss some of the underlying factors that trigger and sustain the global spread of the language. After that, I will also discuss some of the implications of the spread of the language for global linguistic ecology, especially in relation to language education and language use. Now I will observe the present state of the rise of Chinese as a global language in light of the population of native speakers and the number of users and speakers of Chinese as a foreign or second language. Chinese economic growth as a major driving force for such a rise. China's impact on the internet. And which is very important, China's strategy to expand its global influence through promoting its language. Now, the population of speakers. We know that China has a population of 1.4 billion. As of 2020, the national language literacy rate had reached 80.72%. So we would expect to see that at least 1 billion speakers of Chinese in China alone. Then the global picture. We have 1.12 billion speakers of Chinese, while at the same time, we have 1.5 billion speakers of English. So we see the numbers, they are getting closer. However, English is spoken in at least 110 countries, while Chinese now is only spoken in 33 countries. And this is a reality. The economic strength innovation. We know that China is the world's second largest economy, with a GDP amounting to about 75% of that of the USA. Since 2019, China has been the top source of international patients, which is very significant. In terms of global innovation index, China ranks 11th among 131 economies. And I remember 2 years ago, China ranked 14th. So you see, it's going up very quickly. China impact on the internet. Chinese ranks second in internet world users by language. In the subcategory of internet users growth over the period 2000 up to 2021, we see that English actually is much lower than Chinese. However, we also need to notice that almost 55% of the top 10 million sites on the web is actually dominated by English, whereas Chinese only occupies 2.2%. This indicates that Chinese is still far behind in terms of language of content on the internet. The Chinese government has been making strategic efforts to promote this language around the world. In the year 2021, China announced the standards for Chinese proficiency in international Chinese language education. This is China's first comprehensive compilation of criteria to assess the proficiency of learners of Chinese as a foreign language. So it is very much like a TOEFL test in the case of English. We also know that the Chinese government has been operating the Confucius Institute programs since the year 2004. Nowadays, the Confucius Institute has been operating more than 550 institutes and 1,200 Confucius classrooms in more than 160 countries and regions around the world. The Chinese government has also been extending these Confucius Institute programs along with the advancement of the Belt and Road Initiative since the year 2013. We are aware that there are problems and even some severe criticisms in recent years regarding Confucius Institute programs and the Belt and Road initiatives. But that is not the focus of my talk today. And at least as of now, in my own observation, both the Confucius Institute programs and the Belt and Road initiatives that have been going on quite successfully. Now, the implications. I would say that the rising global position of Chinese should not be interpreted as Chinese replacing English as a dominant language. Chinese and English are very different in their histories and in reality. I would understand Chinese as a global language as, Chinese, the one of the global languages, Chinese as one of the languages with global influence. However, we need to notice the significance could be that it could be the first time for Chinese, and possibly also for any other language except English, to achieve real powerful global influence comparable to that of English. But we'll see if that would happen or not. Now, some other implications, especially regarding language learning and language use. As of 2022, 76 countries had included Chinese language learning into their national education system. More than 180 countries and regions have launched the Chinese language programs, and more than 25 million people are learning Chinese as foreign language, as a second language. And we also have to notice that the number of Chinese language learners worldwide had reached 0.2 billion by 2022. And by 2014, the number was only 0.1 billion. So we see it's growing up very quickly. Chinese government has also been operating a global online exam service since the year 2019. Now it is functioning as a global platform supporting 6 languages with more than 2.2 million users around the world, covering 170 countries and regions. And we also noticed that Chinese has been appointed as an official language by UNESCO, FED, UN, WTO, and etc., mainly international organizations. Now, what is the conclusion now? Well, actually, this is not really a conclusion. I just want to point out some points that might deserve our further discussion. The first one is Chinese as a global language. Is it an emerging reality? Well, it depends on how you interpret the global language. In my observation, I would say that Chinese is becoming a global language, a language with global influence, and the influence is rising in the foreseeable future. Then we come to the second question. Is China's economic growth and the rising global influence sustainable? What role will Chinese play as a language with global influence? Some other technical issues include the script competitiveness. This can be a weak point about Chinese, since Chinese language is a script language, so it might be very difficult for many people around the world to learn the language. Scientific, technical, educational, competitiveness. Here we're talking about learning and teaching resources. We are talking about, in addition to operating various programs such as Confucius institutes around the world, China needs to find ways to attract more and more international students to come to China to learn the Chinese language and culture. This is the list of major references. It's the end of my talk today. Thank you for listening. I'll be
Thank you, Professor Albert. Your mic, yes, okay. Thank you so much for your keynote speech. And if anybody has any questions, they can ask Professor Albert. Or they can contact him on the mail ID given on the screen. Thank you so much, Professor Albert.
with pleasure.
For addressing us with your informative and enlightening speech. Moving ahead with the conference. Our next keynote speaker for the day is Diana Noviarini, State University of Jakarta, Advisory Honorary Member of SARA, Indonesia. Her topic is improving the handling of humanitarian disasters in the Banten Archipelago by utilizing the detection of lava output from the Banten underwater mountains. Diana Noviarini is a renowned scholar from the State University of Jakarta. She is also an advisory member of STRA. Diana Noviarini is working with the Ministry of Research and Technology as a part of Ministry of Education and Cultural Indonesia. She is a lecturer in Public Sector Reform Program Assignments, which is ISO 9001-2008, and researcher in the State University of Jakarta, Indonesia since 2011. She is also a holder of series of research intellectual copyrights from the Ministry of Intellectual and Copyrights at a total of 9 certificate of copyrights. Her accomplishments are included as follows: graduate and member of the Young Leader Program, JICA 2010, the Indonesian Ministry of Research and Technologies Grant Year 2017, the Chair Associate of SIC SSAM Korean Conference 2017, and the keynote speaker in ICSTR 2018 and 19. The Indonesian Ministry of Research and Technologies Grant Year 2018 and Indonesian Ministry of Education and Cultural in Public Society Devotion Grant Year 2020.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, participants of the NC Amsterdam 2023. I would like to present our research using the PowerPoint. Our research title is improving the handling of humanitarian disasters in the Banten Archipelago by utilizing the detection of lava output from the Banten underwater mountains. The phenomenon of this research are the morphology of low, medium, wavy hills mostly occupies the central part of the study area. The hilly area is located in an area that has a minimum height of of 50 meters above sea level. In the northern part of Cilegon city, there is a peak area of Mangede, which has a maximum altitude of 553 meters above sea level, while the hills in Serang Regency are in the southern area of Mancak and Waringin Kurung districts, and in Pandeglang Regency, the hilly area is in the south. Based on this topology, Banten has the potential to expand the area for monitoring and responding to humanitarian disasters, with the potential for underwater mountain lava avalanches in the southern part of the Banten region, published by SaveTheHighSeas.org 2021, which has the potential to be used as material for the expansion of the southern part of Banten, as well as assembling detection equipment. Lava avalanches under the sea as a means of detecting the potential for tsunami disasters and high tidal waves. This research is meant to define the regional expansion potential development for the use of marine and land potential mapping by the technology of sedimentology media. This type of sedimentology technology are commonly used to expand the regional economic development transportation, since the material have been through the mechanical, chemical, and biology processes. This research of sedimentary structure and its relation to sedimentary process using the sedimentary technology process and the use of its regional potential mineral deposit transported by the mining process initially, and the trace of mineral traits in the transitional, shallow marine, and deep marine using satellite images, and the characteristic of mineral traits over the regional mainland. The research implications are, at this time, there is no detection tool for underwater mountain lava avalanches that can be used anywhere in Indonesia for tsunami disaster management and potential high waves, and the use of detection tool for the expansion of the southern region of Banten in the Indian Ocean. Some of the partner problems that can be explained after a survey and focus group discussion have been agreed upon by the Secretary of the Banten Office. The crystal axis and its projection, known as the crystal system, could be used to trace the mineral traits, including the symmetry elements of crystal, the repetition of crystal trace, the growth twinning pattern over the wall of minerals, physical and chemical structure through mineral tests. The elements and isotope of crystal formation and distribution of elements in space using the methods of absolute age dating by carbon dating occurrence of elements and isotope in different chemical stability in tiny crystal trace in mineral deposit could be found in various parts of the earth, both mainland and marine. The found of new minerals and potential sedimentary rocks could be used to mapping the deposit to develop regional potential economic. Its expansion is but its regional authorization. In the regional economy, the study of development and growth economy by using the minerals and sedimentary rocks deposit could be used to expand the regional area and developing the economic growth of regional economic development basis model by dividing the economy into two sectors, basis sector and non-basis sector. The inevitable of developing the growth and economy model in the regional area expansion was always the conflict of using the same mineral and potential resources of marine and land deposits in the closest and nearby regions. The conflict of regional civilization could become exhausting of mineral deposits, enforcing the authorization to find new mineral deposit by using the topology of demographic regional area. And so this research was using for factors of that need to be discussed in this research were described as the regional area, regional economic basis, the regional area decision, and the mapping of mineral deposit. The sedimentology technology material devices that develop from the satellite images and carbon dating edge devices. This research is expecting to find the device that could be used to mapping the potential mineral trace deposits in the shallow depth marine and mainland in order to develop and growth economical potential of regional area in the purpose of the regional area expansion. The outcome of the research was to make significant contribution to the growth and developing of economic regional area by the expansion of regional area potential and the findings of the sedimentology technology material devices that could be used widely and commonly in honoring the government of Indonesia and the future use of technology and the granted scholarship institution. The outcome of the research are expected to be outdoor activities, which is we have to take samples from the southern Sea of Banten and then the northern Sea of Banten, of which the Rakata Island. And then the detector design using the satellite images from the NASA platform. And then we are detecting the lava falls currently in northern Sea of Banten. And then Lower Mountain Sea consisted of information technology literacy ability of Banten people has increased by 90% in accessing mountain lava fall detectors under the sea using the NASA platform, and then information technology literacy skills in accessing underwater mountain lava fall detectors, and then activities to strengthen the application and development of abrasion detection tool using to detect the lava and then mountain lava under the sea. 10% partner group is able to create content on underwater mountain lava fall detectors. And then our research is intended to be published in Scopus publication using Scopus publication, and then to intellectual property rights currently being registered to Ministry of Intellectual Property Rights. Monitoring and evaluation assistant for the program implementation, team assistant for monitoring and evaluation capability finding, analyzing and providing solutions to the need for improvement of underwater mountain lava fall detection equipment, and then reporting on scientific research results and publication are expected in report on scientific research activities with monitoring and evaluation to conduct further research in a wider area based on the findings. And then intellectual property rights currently being registered to Ministry of Intellectual Property Rights, and then articles on the results of scientific research activities in journals. And then this research is expected to be published in international journal of that being indexed by Scopus. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to end our presentation and to show gratitude and our thank you for the State University of Jakarta, and then the Eurasia Research for providing this wonderful event to publish and then to share our research publication.
Thank you so much, Diana.
You're welcome.
Thank you for giving out the speech and addressing all the participants with your enlightening speech. If any participant has any questions related to Diana's presentation, they can ask. Okay, so participants are requested to put their questions related to her presentation in the chat box. Moving ahead with the conference. Our next keynote speaker of the day is Dr. W.G. Samanthi Konarsinghe, Academic Director and Statistical Consultant, Institute of Mathematics and Management, Sri Lanka and Australia. Her topic is SAMA Radical Indicator, SRI, for measuring psychometric variables. Dr. Samanthi Konarsinghe, an award-winning scientist, has served as a statistical consultant and a lecturer for more than 2 decades. She has developed various mathematical and statistical techniques to the world. The circular model, CM, and the SAMA circular model, SCM, are the 2 widely applied techniques whilst the damped circular model DCM and the forced circular model FCM are recently developed models. Dr. Samanthi has won the Best Paper Award from the International Conference on Advances in Mathematics, Computers, and Physical Sciences and the International Conference on Business, Economics, Social Sciences, and Humanities for her research findings. She was awarded the IMRF Best Scientist Award India for her invaluable contribution to the field of statistics. She has been in constant demand due to her new findings, gets an invitation from various destinations to share her knowledge as a keynote speaker, invited speaker, etc. at international research forums in Thailand, Singapore, Malaysia, India, Australia, and many other countries. Also, she was the guest of honor and the chief guest of many international research forums. Dr. Samanthi is a multidisciplinary, has obtained a Bachelor of Science degree in mathematics, postgraduate diploma in industrial mathematics, Master of Science in applied statistics, Master of Business Administration (MBA), and Doctor of Philosophy in Statistics. Doctor of Philosophy in Statistics also has a diploma in classical music. She is also the member of the American Statistical Association (ASA), Statistical Society Australia (SSA), Institute of Applied Statistics Sri Lanka (IASSL), and the National Science Foundation (NSF) Sri Lanka. She is the editor-in-chief of Journal of New Frontiers in Mathematics and Statistics, Journal of New Frontiers in Economics and Business, Journal of New Frontiers in Healthcare and Biological Sciences, Journal of New Frontiers in Education and Social Sciences, published by the Institute of Mathematics and Management of Sri Lanka. Also, an editorial board member of the American Journal of Theoretical and Applied Statistics, AJTAS. She is an advisory member, technical scientific conference committee member of the STRA. Most interestingly, Dr. Samanthi is not only a scientist, but also an artist, a violinist, a painter, writer, drama producer, and an actress. The membership magazine of the American Statistical Association wrote 2 testimonials on her.
Today, I am going to talk about SAMA radial indicator for measuring psychometric variables. This is my recent finding. I am Dr. Samanthi Konarasinghe, Academic Director of Institute of Mathematics and Management, Sri Lanka and Australia, and I am a researcher of the Western Sydney University, Australia. So before moving to the topic, we'll talk about the types of data and variables. As we all know, data are mainly divided into 2 parts as quantitative and qualitative based on the variable type. Quantitative variables are again divided into 2 parts as discrete random variables or continuous random variables. Qualitative variables. Qualitative variables are non-numerical data. So we obtain them as categories. To measure these variables, we use measurement scales. Nominal, ordinal, interval, ratio. They are measurement scales. So the quantitative variables are measured by interval or ratio scales, whilst the qualitative variables are measured by nominal or ordinal measurement scales. Qualitative random variables are measured by nominal or ordinal scale. If the random variable yield categories, but these categories are non-comparable, they are in nominal scale. If the categories are comparable, then they are in ordinal scale. It's easy to understand with these examples. If we think about the brands of motor vehicles, we can think about many groups: Isuzu, Mitsubishi, Micro, Toyota. They all are groups or categories, but we can't compare them in any way. Male and female. So they are groups, non-comparable. But when it comes to ordinal scale, if you say, do you like indigenous medicine? Someone would say no, somewhat, yes, that is comparable. Response to this statement: nurses are very kind. Strongly disagree, disagree, neither, agree, strongly agree. And this first example, types of fever, low grade, moderate. So these things are groups, but comparable. If we just think about educational qualifications, up to high school, then the bachelor's degree, master's degree, PhD, they are categories, comparable categories. So, but they all are qualitative variables. So the qualitative variables are measured either by nominal scale or ordinal scale, whereas the quantitative variables are measured by interval or ratio scales. So what was the problem of my interest to develop this SAMA radial indicator? In various fields of research, we have to collect the qualitative data and we have to collect the psychometric data. We want to measure the attitudes, beliefs of people. So these qualitative variables are not directly observed. They are measured by latent variables or hidden variables. These latent variables are measured through questions or items. The Likert scales are widely applied in measuring these items to obtain the values for psychometric variables. Like Likert scale, maybe it is 3 scale or 5 scale or 7 scale. As we all know, strongly disagree, disagree to strongly agree. We may go to 5 scale or 3 scale, or there are various ways. So the variables measured by Likert scale or any other that kind of scale, they are categorical variables. The problem with the categorical variables is they have some restrictions in data analysis, because as they are very unlikely to be normally distributed, parametric statistical methods are not appropriate. For example, Z test, t-test, ANOVA, multiple regression analysis, those things are not appropriate when the variables are categorical. So we have to move to the non-parametric counterparts. It was really important to develop a method to mitigate the limitations of polytomous rating scales, to avoid misuse of statistics. What is that? As we know, there are 2 types of statistical techniques, parametric and non-parametric. Power of the test of parametrics are more than the non-parametric counterparts. Therefore, across the world, researchers tend to misuse parametric statistical techniques and come out with useless outcomes. Simply speaking, use the Likert scale in measuring the items, and without checking whether the random variables are normally distributed, simply use the z-test or ANOVA. That is useless. But what is the solution? If the people really want to use the parametric method as they are more powerful, I've thought I should develop a technique to mitigate the problems of the polytomous rating scales. The study of Konarasinghe 2023, the reference is given below. It is developing the SAMA radial indicator for measuring qualitative random variables. Go to the article and you can see the complete development. SAMA radial indicator is developed based on the properties of a circle. A circle, we learned them in school. If the angle is measured in the anticlockwise sense, it is in either degrees or radians, arc length S and theta relate to R. In this way, is equal R theta. In this item scale, which looks like a half circle or semicircle, there are three words: totally agree, neutral, and totally disagree. So we request the respondent to put a mark on this semicircle based on his or her belief or as they feels. Then we can take the angle at that point or arc length as our variable. If it is the angle 0 to 180 degrees. If it is the arc length, we can use the formula S equal R theta to obtain the arc length. When developing this indicator, I tried to maintain the properties of a good item scale. We are not confusing the words like somewhat agree, slightly agree, confusing the respondent. This scale doesn't have that sort of words. Also, a good item scale should have a neutral point. Actually speaking, there are many other properties for a good item scale. I tried to satisfy all the properties and develop this item scale. So the SAMA radial indicator satisfies all the properties of a good item scale. Most importantly, convert the qualitative random variable into a continuous scale. Interpretation is like this. We don't need to show this to the respondent. It is only for the reference of the researcher. The SAMA radial indicator satisfies the properties of a good item scale. The random variable should be either normally distributed or approximately normally distributed theoretically. I tested the model using real-life data and found that they are normally distributed. So it makes the outcome of a latent variable a continuous random variable solving a decade-old problem of abusing Likert scale. What is that? As the power of the parametric methods are higher than the non-parametric counterparts, researchers tend to misuse the Likert scale. It is not a problem with the scale, but it is a problem with the researchers. However, that problem is now solved. Anyone can use the SAMA radial indicator and use the parametric methods for their data analysis. If you are interested in learning more about the SAMA radial indicator, feel free to contact me. My email address is there. Then I am willing to help you. or you can go through the article, the reference I showed you. You can go through that article to understand how this is being developed and how to use this.
Thank you, Dr. Savanti Konasinghe. Participants having any questions related to her presentation, kindly post their questions on the mail ID, on her mail ID. We will share her mail ID in the chat box. So we have some new participants that have joined us. Good morning, Mert. Mert Gulam. Am I saying it right?
Thank you. Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for asking. How are you doing today?
Thank you. Thank you. I am good. No problem.
Okay. Okay. Ahulnath? Ahulnath, can you hear me? Okay. Thank you so much for joining the conference today. So we will move ahead with the conference now. So this brings us to the end of session 1, that was keynote session, keynote talk. Now we will begin with the session 2 of the conference, that is team activity and photo session. Let's proceed towards our team building activity. Sometimes we miss the opportunity of connection and linkage with fellow participants of the conference. This team activity is to encourage interaction among all the participants. One by one, we will share the views and solutions on the topic of discussion, and we will also be conducting a photo session during the same. So our today's topic of discussion is how stress affects your body and mind. So we'll begin with the video session, team activity session.
Stress is usually seen as something we need to avoid. This is not true. We need stress, and we need our body's stress hormone cortisol to rise and fall throughout the day. Stress helps us wake up in the morning, helps us focus, learn, and remember new things. It's when people experience too much stress and start having difficulties coping that stress becomes a problem. High levels of stress can disrupt the natural changes in the body's stress response system and start to affect our physical and mental health. Over time, accumulated stress can result in false FFF response activations. When trying to measure our stress tolerance, the bucket analogy can be helpful. Our stress tolerance, or the size of our bucket, is a product of our genes, personality, and life experiences, and its size varies from person. The water in this analogy is the combination of all the stress in your life. We use the coping strategies we have available to keep our bucket from overflowing. They are like taps that allow water to drain from the bucket. Stress can include training, work, school, relationships, finances, moving, changing jobs, or the loss of a loved one. Both positive and negative experiences will affect the water level. A big bucket can hold more water or stress before it overflows. With a smaller bucket, less water is required for the water or stress level to become critical. While you can't change the size of your bucket, you can make life adjustments to reduce water coming in. You can also learn new coping strategies and stress management techniques to allow water to drain out. Mind tools, exercise, quality sleep, relaxation, and sharing your feelings with friends are some examples of effective water taps. Staying up late, sleeping in, drugs, inactivity, procrastination, suppressing or ignoring problems are examples of unhelpful coping strategies or false taps. They might give temporary relief, but actually result in water flowing back into your bucket.
So this was our video activity or team group discussion activity. So I would like to know the participants' views about this topic, how stress affects our body and mind. Mert, would you like to share your views? Hakan, would you like to share your views?
Yes, thank you. So there's a technical problem with my speaker, so and cannot hear you clearly. But I prepared a little speech on the stress. If you want, I can share it with you.
Okay.
Thank you. For me, the stress is the biggest enemy that attacks a person's quality of life.
Mm-hmm.
And the big stress is a disease that harms persons both mentally and physically. For example, emotional well-being, cognitive functioning, sleep disturbances, behavioral changes, interpersonal relationships problems can be given as examples of mental effects, and as physical effects, cardiovascular, immune, digestive, respiratory, and endocrine system problems can be given as examples. And I witnessed these situations a lot, and the stress rate among people is very high overall. So this causes serious problems in the general health of people. However, as we all know, a person's physical and mental health are interconnected. In other words, physical health problems occur in a person who has a psychological disorders over time, or vice versa. And stress people have also low success rates in their jobs. Ultimately, staying away from stress is essential if you want to stay healthy, both mentally and physically. And so, why doesn't stress stop being a common problem for many people? And in my opinion, two of the biggest causes of stress are economic situation and future anxiety.
Yeah.
We know that in some countries where the economic situation and social life are at a good level, the stress rate is very low compared to other countries. So that's all I want to say about this topic for now. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your views with us, Hakan. Professor Albert, would you like to share your views on this topic?
Well, it's a very interesting topic and very relevant. And okay, you see, I can only talk based on my own experience, maybe. I think you see, in the university where I belong to, every year I mean, the faculty members were required to take a stress sort of level test, you know, and every year it's a sort of requirement. Okay, just as we need to have the health check every year. So every year we have a stress check level. Although this year I haven't done that, but I'm supposed to do it anyway. And I think you know, in many universities or in organizations around the world, you know, you also have a kind of, you know, stress level sort of a check test that you need to take, whether you need to or you prefer to anyway. And reflecting on my responses to the questions that are listed in that stress level test, like every year, okay, I find that the most stressful when I come to the questions about you know, how I deal with the students, like how I respond to the students' questions, and especially like for the past several years, we have been suffering from COVID-19, and most of the classes have been going on online. And some students, they attended the class, but actually they were not really attending anyway in most cases. So I felt that very stressful actually. Okay, so when I look at the responses in the stress test last year or 2 years ago, I find that the level is very high. The level was very high actually. Okay, I find very stressful. Okay, and I think it's the same. Like if we reflect on our profession, our job, the most difficult relationship we find is the relationship with the person you are directly sort of with, like communication with. And I'm a teacher, so very naturally I find keeping on the sort of relationship with students is very difficult, very challenging, and in a sense sometimes it just feel very stressful anyway. This is but it's good that the best way to solve the stressful situation could be, based on my experience, is talking with, sharing the ideas, talking with my colleagues actually. Okay, so most of them they have the same sort of experience. And once you talk with the friends, with your colleagues, and you'll find that you are not alone, and you feel less stressful in a sense, because you feel you're not alone, and you all have someone there who shared experience, who can offer you something that you can use to reduce the stress level, I think. Okay, yeah. Okay, that's all. I'm sorry, I just reflecting on my own experience anyway.
Thank you so much for sharing your experience with us and sharing your views. Mert Gulam, would you like to share your opinion? Mert Gulam?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think my friends say all things. I agree with all, and maybe I think in order to reduce the stress, we can meet friends and read book, etc. And that's all. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mert, for sharing your view. Hello, Tuba. Good morning.
Sorry. Hello, good morning.
How are you doing today?
Fine, thank you.
So would you like to share your opinion on the topic of discussion, how stress affects your body and your mind?
I can present my presentation if you want.
No, I just wanted to ask your opinion on the topic of discussion, how stress affects your body and mind. If you have some views or opinion you would like to share.
No, thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So Michael, would you like to share your views?
Yeah, sure. So
Yes, Michael.
I have like a kind of like different perspective because I'm still in high school, and yeah, I'm in my senior year, so I have a opposite perspective from Dr. Albert. So as a student, I feel like stress is like very common for me because like from the work, from the homework, from the test, and like the expectation from my parents. So that's like all kind of like stress for me. But I feel like as I was like mentioned in the video, like stress it is, to me I feel like it's kind of like a good thing if like with like the right amount. So like for example, in my personal perspective, like for example in like the like the midterms, or like when I have like a big test coming out in my class, I always feel like I was like more prepared, because I feel like the pressure there, but I won't be like stressed out. I'll have time to like study, to go over and ask questions. But like for example, at the end of the term, when like every course there's like a final exam, you have to study for everything. That's like one, like the to me stress is like too much. The bucket is like overflowing. So yeah, I feel like in my perspective, I will look at like stress more like the pressure. So just like give yourself a little bit pressure before like the like I'll call it like the big events, like the test for me. That will like help me to get myself like ready. Like for example, yeah, and but like with like too much stress, like your mind and body, it will be like overloading. So there's like something going to like go wrong, like that's for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for sharing your views. Zikra, would you like to share your views?
Yes, I think. Okay, so for me, as a final year student in my campus, so stress for me is like some kind of pressure from or big expectation from lots of people around me, and I feel like I'm kind of a person that don't really mind those things. I don't really mind those expectations and all the pressure around my environment, but because I think I have like a good stress management skills. So yeah, I don't really mind what they say. I don't really mind what they hope, and I don't really mind what they expect from me. But I doing my best and having the best effort on achieving my targets. And I think, yeah, but of course, the stress and everything related to it, related to pressures and also expectation can affect to your performance in maybe in academics or performance in working and in the office. Yeah, so I think the key point to succeed from encountering the stress is how you can how can you like have a good stress management and manage your stress, manage your environment. You can select and also you can some kind of filtrate what kind of expectations, pressures, and sayings that you want to enter to your mind, and also because it really related to your performance and everything. I think that's all.
Okay. Thank you so much for sharing your views. Ehsan, could you hear me now? Ehsan Kadim Abed, if you would like to share your views. Dr. Naja, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you. I think that personally, I think that the stress is caused by work deadlines, for example, or family issues. And after experiencing such events, or we have to take a little break to help us start over again. And the stress should be managed regularly to lead a balanced life. Otherwise, it will cause different problems like mood swing, mood swings like feeling difficulty to manage these stresses and having like reduced abilities to coping with stressed situations. Like coping with challenges and make it harder to manage the stress effectively, or even the causes of stress. I think that high level stress may decrease the life enjoyment and diminish the ability of the individual's ability to experience like pleasure in everyday life. If it is a work stress, it will affect the family life and vice versa. So it should be managed. Otherwise, there should be a big shift in the one's life to a change or changing in the skills, abilities, or the situations of life themselves, like changing the job or moving to another place or something like that. That's what I have.
Thank you so much, Dr. Naja, for
Thank
sharing
you.
your views.
Thank you.
Safa, would you like to share your views? Ahulnath, would you like to share your views?
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, I am audible, right?
Yeah, you are audible.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Yeah, for me at least, stress is the fear of the unknown, right? Most of the time. And whenever you have this completely new challenge that you never did, then you kind of feel you feel this have this feeling of being under stress, and wherever this challenge is coming from, maybe it's academics, maybe it's your career, the other phases of life is also affected, and it's like a domino effect. One falls and the other thing also falls behind it. So most of the time I do not see the challenge as a whole, or I don't look at the bigger picture. I just think of the next possible thing that I can do to solve the problem, and that's my stress coping mechanism, if I may. I just look at the next best thing I can do to solve the challenge, and that's just how I go forward with it. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ahulnath, for sharing your views. Safa, would you like to share your views? Okay. So I would, this group discussion activity was a really good activity. All the participants engaged and all the participants give their views and opinions. So to conclude, I would like to say that we can't avoid stress, but we have to find out some of the coping techniques or some of the managing techniques that will work for each individual, because everyone is different. Everyone's coping technique is different. So how we manage stress in our life is important. Rather than focusing on the problem, we need to focus on the solution. Thank you so much, everyone, for the group discussion activity. And I would like to request all the participants to turn on their webcams so that we can take the photo session activity, conduct the photo session activity. I would like to request all the participants to turn on their webcams for the photo session activity. Dr. Naja, could you turn on your webcam? Okay. Okay, moving ahead with the conference. Thank you so much, everyone. So moving ahead with the conference, this brings us to the end of session 2 of our conference. And now we will start with session 3 of the conference, that is technical talk. So our first presentation for the day is from a group of presenters: Naja Al-Mohammadi, Safa Arothali, Maha Alabash, Negmuldin Al-Sheikh, College of Education Al-Ain, United Arab Emirates. The topic is See How Arabic, Chinese, and English native speakers read stories, a schema analysis. You can read the abstract from the screen given. All the participants can read the abstract from the screen given. Moving ahead with the presentation.
Hi, everybody. Today we are going to present our paper entitled See How Arabic, Chinese, and English Native Speakers read Stories, Schema Analysis. The relationship between language and culture has been a major issue of concerns for psychologists, anthropologists, and philosophers for a long time. Kant claimed that new information, new concepts, and new ideas can have meaning only when they can be related to something already known by the reader. or the individual. Cultural schema refers to a discipline of cognitive anthropology that is derived from social structure. This term is used interchangeably with cultural models that include schematic representations of general concepts shared among individuals of the same culture. Many scholars like these introduce that cultural schema principles and readers' cultural orientation in relation to interpretation while reading the cultural text. And different researchers like these attempt to understand the relationship between culture and language, and reading practices and reading, and the role of cultural schema and interpretation. However, none of these studies emphasize the role of using English to communicate culturally familiar and unfamiliar text, and how this contradicts readers' existing cultural schema, particularly within a context where three different cultures were addressed, like Arabic, Chinese, and English. Hence, in this study, an understanding of the role of cultural schema in nurturing reading interpretation was considered. English as a medium of interpretation could influence the reader's interpretation and communication of their ideas. The purpose of this study is to understand the role of cultural schema in nurturing the reading interpretation was considered, particularly when using English as a medium of interpretation. Also capturing the reader's views toward their reading of different cultural-based narrative text, and how English as a medium of interpretation could influence their interpretation and communication of their ideas. This the study was guided by one main research question: how do college students from different cultures interpret culture-based narrative texts using English as a medium of interpretation? And two sub-questions: how do native Arabic, Chinese, and English speakers respond to cultural-based narrative text using English as a medium of interpretation? And the second one is: how do Arabic, Chinese, and English native speakers view their reading of different culture-based narrative texts?
The methodology. This study followed a qualitative research approach. We had written document analysis and interviews. Our participants were 6 college students, 2 Arabic, 2 Chinese, and 2 British. The participants were conveniently and purposefully selected based on their availability and willingness to participate, which is one of the main features of the convenience sampling. The instruments in this, we had 3 culturally relevant stories, one in Arabic, Chinese, and English. Each participant read 2 passages, answered the questions after the passage, and then we analyzed their answers. The analytical techniques were adapted from COFFEE. We used it to analyze the document, including the process of production, linguistic features, and the contained content. As you can see here, students had to answer 5 tasks after reading reading each story. First, they had to understand the main idea of the story through creating their own title from their own words. Then they have to tell the whole story events. The third task was to elaborate the intended meanings. The fourth one was extracting the moral values, and the last one was to state their opinion about the story they read. Here is the framework that we followed for this study. The analysis followed cultural schema analysis, where we had the document analysis. We looked at the cultural metaphor interpretation patterns. The criteria for each text, we looked at reading time, just recall, elaboration, and distortion. The analysis took 4 phases. The first one was training, second was rating, the third was discussion, and the last one was decision. For the interview analysis, we looked at the students' attitude towards cultural schema. From their interviews, we looked at the common themes, and we had 4 themes. The first one was enhancing reading and interpretation through culturally relevant text. The second one was distorted interpretation of unfamiliar cultural text. The third one was stimulation of cultural narrative text. The last one was reciprocal interweaving between cultural schema and linguistic competence. We look at consistency in among both analysis to reach our conceptual schema interpretation of reading cultural relevant text. Data analysis procedure were adapted from Stephen, Jack, Dave, and Anderson. For the procedure was, we measured 4 main criteria. The first one was the amount of time students spent to read. Then the just recall, which is the amount of recall of text elements. Then we measure the number of readers' modification of the text through elaboration and distortion. You can see here that this is how we actually analyzed and a sample of our analysis.
Moving to the major findings, the first research questions: how do native Arab, Chinese, and English speakers respond to cultural-based narrative text using English as a medium for interpretation? Results in the first table indicate a noticeable difference between the participants, the English native speakers participants, processing of a familiar text, okay, which is the English story, and the processing of the unfamiliar narrative text, which is the Chinese story. So they spend less time in processing the English text than the Chinese one, although both are presented in English language, with higher frequency in gist recall and elaboration when they process the English stories than the Chinese one. Although Mary also in her elaboration in the Chinese story was a little bit higher than the English one, this relates to her writing volume, in which she wrote more in Chinese in a story in order to elaborate more for more understanding. With regard to the distortion, distortion was found to be significantly higher in Chinese narratives compared to the English narrative text. In terms of the Chinese native speakers, they needed almost double the amount of time to process the Arabic story compared with their Chinese story. Also, gist recall and elaborations were not found when they processed the Arabic story, and it is reflected on also the distortion of the Arabic story, which was recurrent. In terms of the Arabic native speakers, they used less time to process the Arabic story than the Chinese one. Higher frequency was found also in elaboration and gist recalling when reading the Arabic story than the Chinese one. Also, distortion was found in Chinese narrative text more frequently, and it was more frequent than the Arabic narrative text. The second research questions: how do Arabic, Chinese, and English native speakers view their reading of different cultural based narrative text? Based on the participants' responses in the semi-structured interview, there are 4 main themes generated from their responses reflected their experience in this research. The first one is enhancing reading interpretation through cultural relevant text, which means that the familiar or the cultural related text can enhance the idea of reading comprehension and reading interpretation whenever they use English as a medium of interpretation. The second theme is distorted interpretation of unfamiliar cultural texts, which is normal because they don't have enough schema or cultural schema about the unfamiliar text, which affected the level of distortion, which is increasing whenever they encounter any unfamiliar cultural text. The third theme is related to the idea of stimulation of cultural-based narrative texts, which means that whenever they faced a lot of difficulties when they read unfamiliar cultural text, it enhanced their motivation to understand more about these stories related to a particular culture. The final theme is reciprocal interweaving between cultural schema and linguistic competence. It means that the language itself doesn't help the readers to understand the cultural-based narrative text, because they need also something called, or they need to build up their cultural schema too. This is one of the interesting points related to our study. It is an example of one of the Chinese native speaker who respond to the questions related to our study, and it is related to the Chinese stories by using the Arabic language. We found it to be it is interesting to share such of this sample because the Chinese participant found the Arabic language more easy and appropriate to express about his understanding regarding the Chinese story that he read. Finally, the recommendations. The first one is that understanding the role of cultural schema is necessary for teachers, education and curriculum development. So there is a need to focus on cultural schema, how they can enhance it and how they can integrate it within the curriculum and even assessment. Also, longitudinal multi-phase mixed method design should be considered to determine different realities about cultural schema construction and the construction along with the construction of linguistic competence and how they are complementary with each other. The third point is considering the English language and how it affects the reader's interpretation of cultural topics is essential. So there is a need for investigation on using English for cultural purposes as an extension to to the current study and even to the language used for specific purposes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Naja Al Mohammadi, Safa Al Uthali, Maha Al Habash, and Negmaldan Al Sheikh for the presentation. If anyone has any questions related to their presentation, they can ask Dr. Naja. Okay, so moving ahead with the conference. Our next presenter of the day is Dr. Doa Al-Dihamawe, Department of Physiology, Jabir Ibn Hayyan Medical University, Najaf, Iraq. The topic of the presenter is applying Vladimir Prop's morphology of the folk tale to Nicholas Sparks, the Lucky One. The participants can read the abstract from the screen. Moving ahead with her presentation.
Hello everyone, okay, my paper is about applying Vladimir Prop of the morphology of folk tales and Nicholas Sparks, the Lucky One. Okay, here is the picture of the author, Nicholas Sparks. He is one of the best New York Times bestseller author. He was born in America, December 31, 1965. Literary he is a modern American novelist. A New York Times bestseller author, as I have mentioned, with over 80 million international copies in 45 languages. Okay, I'm going to use Vladimir Prop theory. Okay, here is a picture of the Russian folk tales. Okay, he has a theory. It can be considered as old one because it is related for 1927. He wrote his theory in his book Morphology of the Folk Tales. He takes 100 Russian folk tale and analyzes them to find out that all these folk tales contain a common point. He classified them to 31 features. So I'm going to use this theory, which is used to be applied on folk tales and fairy tales, and use it to study novel to see can we apply it, and I'm going to succeed in applying it or not, and how many of these 31 features I can find in the modern text or modern fiction. Okay, that's why I selected Nicholas Spark, because he's a modern novelist. Okay, therefore my research questions are: is it possible to apply Vladimir Brov Morphology of the Folk Tales 1927 on Nicholas Spark novel, The Lucky One? And here is the two copies for the novel, The Lucky One. It was published in 2008. This is the original copy, and the second one after the adaptation for a movie. The cover has been changed. So the second question, the first question is, I'm going to see if it's possible or not. The second question is what are the good and the bad morals portrayed by the main characters in The Lucky One? Third question, how many features of Brov 31 features can be found in Nicholas Spark Lucky One? So I mentioned that there are 31 features in the fairy tales and the folk tales. So in this novel, in modern fiction, can we find them all the 31? Or only 2, or 0, or 3, or 5? This is the main research question. Among the 31 features, the second feature is violation. Violation, is that when the villain come into the story, everything is peaceful, and all of a sudden we have someone disrupt the family peace, and here he is in this novel. He is Kate Clayton. He is her ex-husband. She has a kid from him, and he is always mistreating his own child, and he is the villain in the story. Another feature is spatial transference, between two kingdoms. This is what happened. The story opens, when after Logan, here is a picture of Logan, while he found the picture in Iraq, and after he was lucky to survive 3 tours in Iraq, because the picture was the lucky charm for him. He decided to look for the girl in the picture. So after he returned back to America, his journey started from Colorado to North Carolina. He has walked all this, it means he walked all America from west to east. So there is a transformation in the space, from one kingdom or from one spot, from one state to another. Another feature is villainy. It means the representation of the villain character. I have already mentioned he is Kate Clayton, her ex-husband. Why he is the villain? Because of number of reasons. First, he is a deputy or a police officer in this is small town in North Carolina, but he is misusing his power. For example, the novel opens from the first page that he's taking pictures for girls who they are swimming in the lake in the forest while they are naked. So he is misusing his power, the power that has been given for him to protect people. He is using it against the people, against the citizen. Later on, he is going to take this picture and add it to his little collection, which means that he has already do that a lot. And when he takes picture, he is using his apartment camera. That's awful. However, second point is that he still controlled his ex-wife life. I mean, preventing anyone to come close to her, to date her, and whenever there is some guy he's coming to date her, he is going to threaten him, and that's why she's still, I mean, single after 6 years after their divorce, which is for such a lovely and beautiful lady. I mean, it is, I mean, cause an issue, psychological issue, because she thinks that that she is lacking something. There is why everyone is, I mean, does not date her or go out with her for dinner only once, then he is gonna run away. Her aunt or grandmother, okay, described it as you were still his toy, and even though he got new toys, it doesn't he want anyone to play with his old toys. So one of the features that Rob mentioned about the villain, he is control his victim life, and he is actually doing that perfectly. Then Nicholas Spark described him as bully, quick to anger, in a position to abuse his power. Someone who thought to be deserve whatever he wanted whenever he wanted. This is the second point. He is bullying everyone. Is, I mean, misusing his power. This is according to the author opinion. Then we have, I'm pretty sure, all I want is a kiss. Is that such a big deal? Then he has sexually harassing his ex-wife, asking her to do a sexual relationship with him, or to kiss him, or to go out in date with him. And when she started to have a relationship with Logan, he asked her to break up with him. After actually he threatened Logan at the beginning, but he did not succeed. Then he told her, okay, that if you did not kiss me or go on a date with me, I'm going to take my child from you. He's going to take the custody. So he is really villain because he is using her child to threaten her. Donor is the helper or the provider. Okay, there is always in the story someone who is always providing and supporting the hero. In this novel, okay, we have two donor or helper. The first is Drake, I mean Elizabeth's brother. Even Logan did not see him face to face. He just find the picture, okay, after a sudden in the desert in Kuwait before the occupation. So the picture was his good luck charm that saved him during the worst, I mean, fight ever. So he is the first donor. The second one is Victor. Victor is Logan's best friend. He's always believing in superstition, and he encouraged Logan to believe that this picture is a lucky charm for him, and eventually you will look for her. Okay, there is a greater purpose to all this. It is your destiny. So he, okay, help him to understand that this picture is not only to save you from the war in Iraq, there is further purpose for this. You were meant to be together, and this is what pushed Logan from the first place to start this journey looking for Elizabeth. Reception of magical agent. The magical agent in this novel is the picture, because it has a superpower to save, okay, the holder of this picture. It saved Logan 3 tours in the war in Iraq, and the worst circumstance ever. Then it saved Ben life, okay, and the last scene in the novel. A punishment, okay, there is a punishment that the good people, that they are going to have a happy end, okay, and that would happen while the bad people, they are going to be punished, okay, with death or disease or committing suicide. So this is what happened. Kevin at the last scene has died, right? He's trying to save his son life, while Logan, Beth, or it is her nickname, for Elizabeth, Zeus and Ben, okay, live happily forever after. So among Vladimir Rob 31 feature in my application on the lucky one, I found the novel contain 18 feature from the 31. So is it possible to apply a theory that has been designed for fairy tales on a novel? Yes, it is possible. Even if it is classical theory, it can be applied on modern fiction. So for this point, thank you very much. I hope you are going to have a great day.
Thank you so much, Dr. Doa, for your presentation. If anyone has any questions related to her presentation, they can put their questions in the chat box. Moving ahead with the conference, our next presenter of the day is Zikra Farisi, School of Business and Management, Institute Technology of Bandung, Indonesia. His topic is how does Schneider Electric's digital transformation in supply chain throughout the effect of COVID-19 pandemic. You can read the abstract from the screen. Moving ahead with this presentation.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning to all of the attendees. First of all, let me introduce myself. I am Zikra Farisi, as one of the final year student of School of Business and Management, Institute Technology Bandung, Indonesia. Here, I would like to present and bring you all to know more about Schneider's electric digital transformation throughout the effect of COVID-19 pandemics. It all starts in Wuhan, December 2019. First virus outbreak caused death and mass disruptions all over the country. And in fact, in between February to April 2020, there are 5,800 at least small businesses were closed. Companies, small enterprises, and also big companies should rapidly adapt to new working conditions and new social environments. These outbreaks led to more and more disruptions in most of the sectors of the industries all around the world. Top management were stressfully trying to adapt to the new industrial era. This outbreak is like a double-edged sword. It will destroy several businesses that have no preventive action and agile bureaucracy, but will also develop other businesses or as small as business functions. This development needed to supported by investment in technological development. It cannot be denied that technology is a pivot for most of the businesses. The change towards digital transformation has been a trend to extend the sustainability of a company. Furthermore, to compete among the competitors and also to actively develop businesses should be aware of this change in every business functions. For big companies, traditional based framework enterprises resources planning or ERP should be transformed into a more enhanced and sophisticated type of supply chain, such as cloud-based supply chain. This supply chain framework not only will change the business towards a more sustainable development, but also to be agile in terms of increasing the responsiveness to market dynamics. Schneider Electric, as one of the biggest electrical supply companies founded in France, has invested in technological development. In addition, Schneider Electric has one top 12 most sustainable companies in the world based on corporate knights and also top environmental, social, government ESG ratings for its sustainability impact and best practice by Moody ESG Solutions, Standards and Poor's, and also CDP. By seeing those achievements, I am fully motivated to learn more and also to read more about what kind of development Schneider Electric implements and set that as their strategies to successfully survive in COVID-19 pandemics. Thus, this review and research hopefully will furthermore be one of the benchmarking for other companies so that they could develop strategies to prevent disruptions for happening to their business. By seeing those objectives, I come up with two main research questions to be answered. The first one is what are advantages of applying digital transformations in the supply chain of business, and what are the digital supply chain transformation of Schneider Electric throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, and how do they utilize those transformation to adapt to the new conditions. The scope of and limitation of my dissertation is covering up only to the research about the supply chain transformation of Schneider Electric by gathering data from Indonesian logistic directors of Schneider Electric and website Schneider Electric from February to March 2023. Next, to support my research, I did a review from several articles and credible resources by focusing on 4 variables, which are COVID-19 pandemic, supply chain management, key benefits of supply chain, and digitalization of supply chain management. Those articles were written by several researchers, such as Ngedao in 2022, Meadow and Copra in 2013, Carey Club in 2017, Arab and Griffin Crane in 2011. Let's jump to my research design. The first step of my research design is the problem identification, which is the COVID-19 pandemic itself, the 2 research questions that I had to review, the 2 research questions, and later I have to review to support my research data collection by interviewing and data gathering from websites, data analysis, and lastly, the conclusion and also recommendations. The method of my research is qualitative method by gathering data from stakeholder interviews as my primary data and credible resources such as Schneider Electric websites as my secondary data, which will further develop into a descriptive case study analysis. Let's get into analysis. As the finding from gathering the data, Schneider Electric has focused on 5 main sectors development in their supply chain transformations and development. Firstly is the adaptive, agile, collaborative-based innovations. These first innovations mainly discuss on how Schneider Electric could develop their organizations into interconnected organizations, which will help all of the business processes. From the disruptions, they learn how hard to control and maintain their supplier relationship and quality. They develop SQM or Schneider Electric supplier quality management. As SQM consists of 3 main stages for suppliers to have access and deal to be a part of Schneider Electric businesses. The first step is having SAM or Supplier Approval Module. Supplier Approval Module is the first step in SQM that has the output of granting the access for the supplier to be qualified as one of the business suppliers. Schneider Electric will do a procurement assessment for the supplier. The procurement assessment consists of a quality audit, supply chain audit, technology audit, and co-development audit. Through these audits, the suppliers will be graded and decided whether they will be approved for businesses and get to the next qualification method, conditionally rejected or rejected as their supplier and disengagement of process. The suppliers that pass through the SAM process will get into the SQM, which stands for Supply Qualification Module. This SQM stage is supported by the Part Product Evaluation Plan or PPEP. Suppliers will need to run through the part conformance to specification, supplier process capability control, and product performance verifications and approval formalized and documented. Suppliers that are qualified to pass this SQM process will need to get through the SPM or supplier performance module. The module output is to optimize performance and maximize customer satisfaction by monitoring supplier performance in order to evaluate and continuously improve the performance of Schneider Electric supply base. This process will be created based on the KPI of suppliers by proceeding through 2 segments, quality and delivery. The quality grades will be graded to SDPM or supplier defect per million, which is intended to minimize the defect of suppliers' parts that will enter the Schneider Electrics based on and also SIO or supplier issue occurrence that is intended to identify the probability of suppliers issue that will occur. The delivery segment will be graded by SOTD or supplier on-time delivery, which will grade the reliability of suppliers and improve availability of the supplier to meet the logistic offer. The next one is UOTD or upstream on-time delivery, which will improve suppliers' ability to meet the planned requested date to improve and customer service. Lastly, it will proceed to upstream back order line or UBOL or UBOL to reduce the delays compared to the planned requested date in order to minimize the potential impact to all end customer on all open purchase order. Next one, Schneider Electric has their focus on digitalization of the people. This digitalization of people is needed since people are the main actors in installing, maintaining, operating, and also utilizing the machines and technology. The COVID-19 phenomenon brings all business to have transitions in their working styles and cultures. The implementation of that new working experience on Schneider Electric will improve their people's cognitive experience on doing their task. The concept of cognitive augmentation is the main key of people's digitalizations. Cognitive augmentation's purpose is for the improvement of people decisions making and information taking, and also ability to avoid the situations which later on will create the best output for the company. Resident supply chain of Schneider Electric main point is to create efficient facilities and agile manufacturing. Furthermore, it will cover up their food safety and traceability that ensure compliance and increase their trust across the whole value chain, energy and sustainability, reducing environmental footprint and meet sustainability goals, asset performance that will maximize return on asset investment, workforce empowerment, which will upgrade team efficiently, digital engineering by cut time and cost of and risk of capital project engineering. In conclusion, Schneider Electric has invested a lot to achieve efficient, agile, collaborative, and adaptive product and services. Its purpose is to empower all of the resources to achieve a better sustainable company since digitalization's basic human rights. Thank you for your attentions.
Thank you, Zikra, for your presentation. If anyone has any questions related to Zikra's presentation, they can put their questions in the chat box. Moving ahead with the conference, our next presenter of the day is Ahulnath Kotiyatil Rajiv, Department of Business Administration, Turiba University, Riga, Latvia. Topic: Total Quality Management as a Catalyst for Productivity Enhancement in Creative Industries, a Qualitative Approach. You can read the abstract from the screen given. Moving ahead with this presentation.
Hello everybody, my name is Ahulnath and the topic I am discussing today is total quality management as a catalyst for productivity enhancement in creative industries, a qualitative approach. I'm doing my PhD in the Department of Business Administration at Turiba University in Riga, Latvia. So the goal of the research is to go through various studies to identify the various characteristic elements of total quality management that can positively influence the productivity of creative enterprises and to draft a model that can improve the productivity of small medium creative enterprises. And the research question is what are the various characteristic elements of total quality management and the most frequently used elements of total quality management, and which of the identified elements of total quality management through my study can be adopted by enterprises within the creative industry when it comes to improving their productivity. So the research findings, the following elements were identified through extensive literature review of existing articles that are based on total quality management, and 17 articles were shortlisted, and from those 17 articles frequently used total quality management characteristics were identified, and the identified elements are shown here below, and they are ranked from the most frequently used element to the least. So the elements that I have identified are continuous improvement, customer-centered, leadership, employee involvement, top management commitment, training and education, teamwork, transparent communication, process improvement, productivity, and fact-based decision making. So these are the characteristic elements that I have shortlisted through the 17 articles that I have reviewed for this research. And the identified elements were studied to identify if they positively influence a creative workspace. So the idea here was to get a deep down into the identified elements to know if they have an influence on a creative workspace, and to know if it is a positive influence. And the following 5 elements were finalized. So customer focused, wherein the creative entity has to be very customer focused. Continuous improvement, to keep up with the industry, and to make sure that the creative entity strives in a direction of continuous improvement. Management support or top management support, and employee engagement, having a good environment within the organization, and well, of course, teamwork, which is crucial for any creative enterprise. Moving on, so this was my final draft for a model or a productivity improvement model for small and creative enterprises using the total quality management elements identified. And this model has productivity on top, because productivity is the key element here. And through this model, I intend creative enterprises to attain a higher level of productivity. So underneath productivity comes customer focused, and it's a push and pull between customer focus and continuous improvement. So ideas that are generating from the team or from the organization, or continuous improvement ideas, kind of impact the customer, and the feedback from the customer also aids in continuous improvement, which is again cascaded down to the organization or within the organization. So the customer reviews are also being worked on or also being considered. So every step that are highlighted in orange kind of depicts external dependency, and everything in green is internal. So this is a easy to implement model that can positively impact productivity of creative enterprises. And this is the final draft of the model through this study. And to conclude, so the identified characteristic elements of total quality management were analyzed in relation with productivity, and the final objective being a model that improves productivity. And as this model was drafted using findings of the study. The model is the final model, or the final model drafted is a model that is customer centered. So the organization can always maintain a competitive advantage within the market. The model is unique and based on total quality management principles, so it is easy to implement and it ensures cost effectiveness. So this is how the study is concluded. And with that being said, I remain open for questions if there are any.
Thank you, Avulnath, for your presentation. Thank you, Avulnath, for your presentation. If anyone has any questions related to Avulnath's presentation, they can ask him. Or they can put their questions in the chat box. Thank you so much. Moving ahead with the conference. Our next presenter of the day is Hakan Sipsi, Mining Engineering Department, Afyon Kocatepe University, Afyon Karahisre, Turkey. His topic is grinding and mechanical activation of lizardite using dry stirred media mill for mineral carbonation. You can read the abstract from the screen. Moving ahead with his presentation.
Hello everyone. I would like to state that I am happy to attend the Eurasia conference, and so I hope this study and presentation will be useful for those who are interested. And so in this study, the mechanical activation of lizardite ore by grinding in a stirred media mill was studied. Mechanical activation of calcium and magnesium silicates by grinding is a pre-treatment of some mineral carbonization processes. The mineral carbonation technique prevents the emission of carbon dioxide gas into the atmosphere by chemically binding to calcium and magnesium silicates. And so three different techniques are used in mineral carbonation. These are thermal activation, chemical activation, and mechanical activation. In these three methods, minerals crystal structures deteriorate and so increasing the carbonation rate. Mechanical activation is a grinding process that is performed to decrease particle size and enlarge the surface area of minerals. The grinding causes the removal of hydroxides of hydrated minerals and so yields a highly disordered crystal structure. This is the recently favored process for magnesium silicates in order to produce disordered crystalline structures for mineral carbonation uses. And in this study, we use a vertical stirred media mill for grinding experiments. A pin-type shaft was used as the stirrer, and yttrium stabilized zirconium oxide balls were used as the grinder media. And in the experiments, the energy consumed in the grinding experiments was recorded with an electricity meter attached to the circuit. The operating parameters of each grinding experiments are summarized in this table, and so a total of 12 experiments were performed in the grinding experiments. According to the chemical analysis results, it was determined that the sample consists mainly of silicon and magnesium elements, and this result showed a high rate of loss on ignition. And so these obtained data showed that the sample was a serpentine group mineral. The exact mineralogical composition was determined by XRD analysis. The XRD pattern of the sample showed that all of the materials representing the sample content had a certain crystal structure. And additionally, it was determined that the sample mainly consists of lizardite minerals and the presence of small amounts of brucite and iron silicon. Stirring speed and grinding time are the most effective working parameters in grinding process with stirred media means. The results of the grinding experiments were evaluated with the particle size distribution curves of the ground samples obtained. This figure shows the effects of stirring speed on particle distribution at constant grinding times. And accordingly, increasing the stirring speed at fixed grinding times resulted in smaller particle size. While the difference between the particle size distributions obtained at different stirring speeds was sharper at low grinding times, such as 10 minutes, it was determined that the difference was much less with increasing the grinding time to 30 minutes. And so in this figure, the most striking result was that the particle size distribution at 600 rpm remained much larger in all grinding times compared to other stirring speeds. The other result seen from the curves in this figure was that most of the samples were grouped in 2 or 3 different particle sizes, and these showed a heterogeneous particle size distribution. And this figure shows the effects of grinding time on the particle size distribution at constant stirring speeds. According to the results obtained from these comparative curves, it was determined that the grinding time had a significant effect on the particle size distribution at low grinding speeds. At the same time, it was not so effective at high stirring speeds, especially at 1200 rpm. And after grinding at 1200 rpm for 30 minutes, the particle size distribution mostly remained below 100 micrometer, while a small portion of the sample showed a secondary size distribution above 100 micrometers. This result was not observed in 10 minutes and 20 minutes of grinding under the same conditions. In fact, as the grinding time increases, the particle size is expected to decrease more. However, the emergence of such a situation can be attributed to the agglomeration of particles that have passed to very fine sizes due to increasing the grinding time more than necessary. In addition to the van der Waals forces, the agglomeration is also caused by the binding effect of the water produced by the hydroxylation due to grinding for such materials. And the connection between grinding time and energy consumption in the mill has been reaffirmed and showcasing a linear association. The same situation was observed for the energy consumption depending on the stirring speed. It was determined that as the stirring speed increased, and the energy consumption increased proportionally. Notably, when the mill attains meta-steady state dynamics, the mill's power consumption stabilizes and remains consistent. As a result, considering the data in this table, it was determined that grinding operations in stirred media mills were more appropriate at high stirring speeds and low grinding times. In this way, it has been proven that the product milled to much finer size is obtained with less energy consumption. Considering these results in this study, it was determined that the most suitable grinding conditions were a 1200 RPM stirring speed and 10 minutes grinding time. FTIR analyses were performed to examine the change in the functional groups in the structure of the ground samples. After mechanical activation, the positions of the bands remained almost the same, but they became stronger and clearer. This outcome can be understood by referring the Raleigh's equation, which establishes a connection between the scattering of light and size of the particles. Essentially, the phenomenon can be explained by the fact that larger particles scatter light more effectively. And so, in conclusion, it was concluded that stirred media mills could effectively dry grind lizards into ultrafine particle size. And additionally, it was determined that the optimum grinding conditions in stirred media mills were determined to be as low grinding time at high stirring speeds. In this way, it was seen that a finer sized product was obtained with lower energy consumption. By utilizing specific operational parameters such as 60% ball charge, 40% material charge, 1200 RPM stirring speed, and 10-minute grinding time, a ground lizarded product with a D90 value of approximately 57 micrometers was achieved. The selected operational parameters resulted in an energy consumption of 130 kWh during the grinding process. And so, thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Hakan, Sifti, for your presentation. Anybody, any questions? Okay. So participants having any questions related to his presentation, they can put their questions in the chat box. Moving ahead with the conference. Our next presenter of the day is Mert Gulam, Faculty of Engineering, Karadeniz Technical University, Trabzon, Turkey. His topic is multiple correlations to predict cetane number of pure biodiesel depending on other fuel properties. You can read the abstract from the screen given. Moving ahead with the presentation. I would like to request Mert to present his presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Divya. I am Mert Gülüm from Karadeniz Technical University. My study is multiple correlations to predict certain number of pure biodiesels depending on other fuel properties. An abstract Just a minute. Sorry. This study aims to use multiple non-linear regression method for predicting certain number of biodiesels depending on other fuel properties such as density, kinematic viscosity, flash point, and heating value. Introduction. Biodiesel is a renewable alternative fuels for diesel engines. As an alternative to diesel fuel, biodiesel have better fuel properties such as lower sulfur content, higher flash point, and higher Setan number. Moreover, as an fuel property, the use of biodiesel generally decreases exhaust emissions because of the oxygen content in molecular structure. However, biodiesel has also some disadvantages. For example, poor cold fuel properties, higher viscosity, and lower heating value. And density, viscosity, flash point, heating value, and Setan number are the most important fuel properties. Among these fuel properties, the measurement of Setan number can be time-consuming and expensive. That is why establishing a predictive correlations is very important to reduce the amount of experimental effort. Therefore, in the literature, some correlations to predict Setan number of pure biodiesels have been presented using different techniques such as machine learning methods, group contribution method, and multiple linear regression. However, few studies have presented correlations for predicting Setan number based on other fuel properties using multiple linear regression. Therefore, to fill the gap in the literature, in the study, correlations are presented based on other important fuel properties to predict Setan number of pure biodiesel using multiple non-linear regression methods. Material methods and fuel property data. In the study, to develop predictive correlations, the density, viscosity, flash point, heating value, and Setan number data of 100 different biodiesels are collected from the literature. The fuel properties measured by different researchers are listed in table 1, 2, and 3. And multiple correlations. In this study, to predict Setan number, the predictive correlations are suggested using nonlinear multiple correlations. The forms of multiple nonlinear correlations are given as follows. Equation 1, equation 2, and equation 3. These equations are nonlinear equations, and these were suggested to predict Setan number. Result and discussion. In this section, the predictive capabilities of suggested equations, that is equation 1, equation 2, and equation 3, are compared. Tables 1, 2, and 3 lists the measured Setan number data and relative errors between the measured Setan number data and calculated Setan number values from the equations. I can see the tables. Table 1, and you can see density, viscosity, flash point, heating value, and Setan number data, and you can see relative errors. Compare it between measured data and calculated Setan number values from suggested equations. table 1, there are 100 different biodiesels collected from literature. Similarly, table 2 lists biodiesel data, and equation 3 also lists fuel property data measured by different authors. And so, as listed in table 1, for equation 1, the maximum and the minimum relative errors are computed as 4.9879% and 0.0141%, respectively. Moreover, the average relative error is also computed as 1.6242%, and R-square and root mean square error are also computed, as shown in this slide. To use favor independent variables than equation 1 for practically, equation 2 is also presented. For equation 2, R-square root mean square error, maximum relative error, minimum relative error, and average relative error are also computed as shown in this slide. According to regression results, equation 1 is better predictor compared to equation 2 because equation 1 has lower relative errors and higher R-square value compared to equation 2. In other words, equation 2 is not better compared to equation 1. So to improve the predictive capability of equation 2 in the study, and equation 3 is again derived using the multiple regression method, and as listed in table 2, for equation 3, R-square root mean square error and relative errors are computed to be as 0.9994, 1.4819, and 4.9556%, and 0.0509%, and etc. According to regression results, the predictive capability of equation 3 is considered to be better than equation 2. Finally, to compare the predictive capabilities of equation 1 and equation 3, table 3 is created, and similarly, regression results are computed, and finally, equation 3 is found to be the best equation to predict certain number depending on other fuel properties such as density, kinematic viscosity, flash point, and heating value. Conclusion. In the study, the relationship between certain number and other field properties is determined. Multiple nonlinear regression is used for the formulation of the predictive correlations, and the determinant of certain number can be expensive. So in the study, the predictive correlations are suggested, and finally, equation 3 is found to be best equations because it has lower relative errors and higher R-square values compared to other equations. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mat Gulam, for your presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, moving ahead with the conference. Before that, I would like to ask everyone if anyone has any questions related to Mert's presentation, they can ask or they can put their questions in the chat box itself. Moving ahead with the conference. Our next presenter of the day is Nan Jiang, the Stony Brook School, New York, United States of America. His topic is the potential applications of US mRNA vaccines in China and implications for a universal COVID vaccine. You can read his abstract from the screen. Moving ahead with his presentation.
Hi everyone, my name is Michael. I'm from Shenzhen, China. I am currently a senior at the Salient Features School in Long Island, New York, and today I'm going to present about my research paper, The Potential Applications of US mRNA Vaccines in China and Implications for a Universal COVID Vaccine. Starting with the introduction, the COVID outbreak starts in 2019, Wuhan, China, and then in 2020, there are two major dominant strains that was found, which are alpha and beta strain in UK and South Africa. Then in 2021, there is the Delta outbreak. In 2022, there is the Omicron outbreak. And then 2023, currently in China and some of the Asian countries, there is the XBB recombinant outbreak that brought a new wave of COVID cases. And here is a graphical representation of the biweekly cases per million of China, US, and Japan. And you can see that there are some huge spikes starting in December of 2021 all the way until the end of 2022. And that specific period is the Omicron outbreak, and that is my focus of my paper. Moving on to the vaccination types. Here are the list of the currently used vaccinations for COVID-19 from US and China, and we can see that in the US, there's a variety of vaccines, such as mRNA, the protein vector, and viral vector, and they all showcase a very high efficacy rate. Specifically, the Pfizer and Moderna, they have an efficacy rate in the high 80s and even in the 90s. But however, looking at China, China is using the inactivated virus vaccine, and the most common vaccine in China is the Sinopharm. But the problem is that it has a very low efficacy comparing to the mRNA vaccines developed in the US. And that is like the focus of the paper. So the problem is that in China, people developed the Sinopharm vaccine during the Delta outbreak, and they used that vaccine for the Omicron and the XBB recombinant outbreak. And then before the XBB outbreak, you can see that the China have very low number in the COVID cases due to the very strict government zero COVID policy. But in 2023, once the policy was removed, people found that they are unable to contain infection and COVID cases, which means that the Sinopharm is ineffective against the newly mutated strains. even though that most of the Chinese populations are vaccinated with 2 dosage, they're still getting the COVID once the policy is removed. So that's the big problem. And then looking at the US, they have various types of COVID vaccines with a very high efficacy rate, such as Pfizer and Moderna with the mRNA vaccines. Also, they are still improving on their vaccination, such as the newly developed bivalent booster in 2023, also known as Omicron targeted vaccines. So this booster shot specifically targets the BA4 and BA5 Omicron variants. So in this paper, my research question is, I want to see if the US mRNA vaccine is applicable in the Chinese population in order to combat the current outbreak. In this paper, I used the NCBI database of SARS-CoV-2 virus in order to retrieve all the nucleotide and protein sequence from of the COVID-19 of the very specific strains. And then I used the blast comparison from the NCBI to compare the nucleotide and the protein sequence and to identify specific point mutations that might cause the change in the virus and their infectious rate. So in the protein comparison, I specifically target the spike protein on the virus. So the spike protein on the COVID-19 is also known as the surface glycoprotein, and it is a transmembrane fusion protein that plays a crucial role in binding the receptors of the host cells and initiating the infection. And the table on the right shows the specific regions of the spike protein, and you can see that there are the S1, S2 region. So the S1 subunit is responsible for recognizing and binding to the receptors of the host cell, and the S2 subunit is responsible for fusing the envelope of the virus with the host cell membrane. In the blast comparison, I first target the BA2.1, Omicron variant, and then I chose 6 different regions as the subjects of my comparison. So first, China, obviously it is my subject of this paper. And then I chose Japan as a comparison subject because they're very similar to China in the virus strains, but they use a different type of vaccination than the Chinese Sinopharm one. And then for the US, I chose 4 states, California, New York, Washington, and Arizona as my subjects of comparison because I identified the most mutations and differences in their nucleotide sequence when comparing to China. So I believe that they have the greatest potentials for showing regional mutations and variation, which will complicate the problem. And then in the comparison process, I cross-blast the spike protein sequence of each region, and for each of the region, I chose 10 samples as representation of the entire region. But however, for China and Japan, I was unable to obtain 10 different samples, and for China, I only got 2 strains, and for Japan, I only got 4. So that's all data from the Omicron outbreak. And then in the comparison process, I recorded the percentage of alignment and specific point mutations in the cross comparison. And then I calculated the average and standard deviation percentage for the comparing regions. So here are the results from the spike protein comparisons. This is a heat map of my blast results, and we can see that there's very high percentage of alignment, that each slot has a value above 0.9, which means 90%, more than 90% of the spike protein sequence are aligned with each other. And a value of 0.99 also means 99%, means that only a few amino acid difference between the two strains in the comparison process. So we may conclude that the China, Japan, and US strains are very similar in their spike protein, which could be an indication for the high likelihood of the application of the US vaccines, since all the strains are very alike to one another. That means that the mRNA vaccines that would be effective in the US population would also be effective in the Chinese population. And then looking at the point mutations, this is the data table that I recorded each specific point mutation that appeared in each individual blast comparison. And then that the mutations recorded were like very common and appeared for more than 90% of the blast comparison. And we can see that the most common ones were the N161K and the G679R point mutation in between China, Japan, and the US states. And when looking into the positions of the point mutation, I found out that they are not all in the functional region of the spike protein, but in their structural purpose, which means that they are not that significant on affecting the virus into a different strain. But however, that is very good evidence for fast mutability of the virus, and that may affect the vaccine efficacy of the US and the Chinese vaccines. So we need more studies on that in order to obtain a firm conclusion. In my second part of the blast comparison, I blast against the latest recorded sample in China with the general BA4 and BA5 samples using the same method as the BA 2.1, samples. Why I did that? Because the newest developed vaccine in the US is the bivalent booster, and they only targets the BA4 and BA5 variants. I want to see that would it work against the current outbreak in China, and should we develop more vaccines for the rapidly mutating virus? And then for subjects of comparison, I retrieve all the samples for both BA4 and BA5 from the US, and each are from a different state in order to consider the high variability and coverage for the entire country. And the latest samples in China were all recorded in 2023, indicating the earliest, the latest outbreak. Here are the results from the spike protein comparison between the latest Chinese sample with the BA4 and BA5 samples. And for the Chinese sample, I used two different ones. The sample starting with WKL is a strain from the FY 3.1 variant, and it is recorded in May 6th of 2023. And the second one is the WHA strain, which is from the BA 7.14 strain, recorded on January the 2nd of 2023. And then from the comparison from the table, we can see that on average, all the alignment exceeded 0.95 or 90% of similarity with their spike proteins, which is higher than some of the alignment between the regional BA 2.1 strains. However, even with that high percentage of alignment, we cannot guarantee the certainty of the effectiveness of the bivalent vaccines on the current outbreak in China, but this uniformity will be a great indication for the likelihood of the application of the vaccines. And then in order to make a firm conclusion, we would require further studies in order to consolidate the results. In conclusion, even with the reduction of lethality but increase in transmission rate and mutability, SARS-CoV-2 virus is still a major public health concern. In this paper, I discovered the low regional variability of dominant strains in China and the US, and which gave me a better understanding about the applicability of the US mRNA vaccines in the Chinese population. Also, I foresee the potential of overlapping between the influenza and the COVID outbreak in the future. And currently, scientists are developing a so-called universal influenza vaccine to target all strains of the flu. And I'm thinking that that concept, we can also use it on the COVID outbreak and develop a universal COVID vaccine due to the fast transmission rate of the virus, and also that not all countries have the ability to manufacture their own vaccines in time to combat the virus. Lastly, throughout our study, I found a lack of data in the Chinese population and Chinese strains. So in order to improve on the study, we need more sequencing and public health data in order to make a firm conclusion, and maybe need some clinical trial experience and research in order to make a final conclusion regarding the applicability of the US mRNA vaccines on the Chinese population. That's the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Nanjiang, for your presentation. If any of the participants have any questions related to Nanjiang's presentation, they can ask him. Moving ahead with the conference. Our next and the last presenter of the day is Tuba Ozadin, Nursing, Selçuk University, Konya, Turkey. Her topic is physical activity and healthy aging in the elderly.
Tamam, sunum yapacak şimdi. Zeyno gel.
You can read the abstract from the screen given.
Geliyorum ben Esma. Şu Zeyno'yu bir alayım aşağı.
Moving ahead with her presentation. Tuba, would you like to present? Okay.
I can start if you want.
Yes, you can start.
I couldn't see my presentation. Will you share my presentation?
Yes.
Or
we are just sharing.
Okay.
Is it visible now?
Yes, I can see.
You may start.
Okay. Okay. Hi everybody. My name is Tuba Özaydın. I am joined from Selçuk University. My department is nursing. Our presentation topic is physical activity and health aging in the elderly. Yes. we can, yes. Introduction. This study aimed to give information about the physical activity applied in the elderly and healthy aging. In the study, research finding and report of physical activity in the elderly were used. The decrease in birth rates and increase in life expectancy around the world causes an increase in the number of the elderly population. Increasing life expectancy brings with it many health problems. It is essential to promote a healthy lifestyle and develop and maintain functional ability in order to reduce or prevent the health problems of the elderly and ensure their healthy aging. There is a need for older adults who participate actively and healthy in life. In this respect, adequate and balanced nutrition and active physical life come to the fore as a healthy lifestyle for elderly individual. Maintaining physical health and functional capacity is of great importance to facilitate the activity and daily activity of the elderly. Physical activity and healthy aging in the elderly, the proportion of the elderly population in the world is approximately 10%. According to World Health Organization data, 21% of adults have a secondary physical activity. World Health Organization states that physical activity accounts for 6% of deaths worldwide. Those who meet the recommended physical activity level have 20 or 30% lower risk of premature death. It is estimated that approximately 7 or 8% of cardiovascular diseases, depression, and dementia cases, and approximately 5% of type 2 diabetes cases could be prevented if people were more active. According to the World Health Organization, 50% of health in the elderly are due to physical inactivity. In old age, there is wear and regression in the body system. One of the most important changes in the elderly is the loss of muscle mass. And Udall lose about 3 kilograms of muscle every 10 years from middle age. Bone density starts to decrease after the age of 40. But these laws accelerate around the age of 50. As we age, cardiovascular capacity decreases, in attention increases, learning and thinking speed slow down, and perception and problem-solving ability decreases. Healthy aging is defined by World Health Organization as the process of developing and maintaining the functional ability that provides well-being in old age. Healthy aging is the process of maintaining and improving in physical and mental health, independence and quality of life throughout life. Promoting a healthy lifestyle for the elderly provides the development and maintenance of functional ability. Maintaining good physical health and functional capacity is of great importance for the elderly to be active. It is estimated that the number of elderly people in developing countries who need support for active of daily living will quadruple by 2050. Physical activity increases the quality of life by increasing independence in the elderly. The benefit of regular physical activity continue throughout life. Physical activity and healthy aging in the elderly, regular activity in older adults by increasing muscle strength. It reduces fat mass and thus provides weight control, normal glucose and lipid level in the blood. It has protective importance in preventing chronic diseases by improving cardiovascular capacity and balancing blood pressure level. Regular physical activity prevents fracture by increasing bone density and reduces the risk of falling by providing balance. Physical activity improves sleep quality in the elderly and contribute to development of cognitive function and increasing the oxygenation of the brain. It is effective in preventing neurological diseases such as depression, Alzheimer, and dementia, which are common in the elderly. Studies show that physical active elderly people have high healthy levels, quality of life, and cognitive levels. A type of exercise recommended for the elderly. One is aerobic endurance exercise, 2 balance exercise, 3 strength and resistance exercise, 4 flexibility exercise, and 5 multi-component physical activity. Yes. World Health Organization recommended that older adults do at least 150 and 300 minutes per week of the moderate intensity physical activity, or at least 75 and 150 minutes of vigorous intensity physical activity in order to increase balance and prevent falls. A physical activity program including functional balance and strengthening training should be applied and at least 3 days a week. Should do moderate or high intensity muscle strengthening activity at least 2 days a week. Measuring physical activity intensity, the intensity of activity is graded by its metabolic equivalent. One metabolic equivalent is the amount of energy used while sitting quality. Light intensity exercises are activity that causes little change in breathing and heart rate. Moderate intensity exercise are activity that show noticeable change in breathing and heart rate. Vigorous intensity exercise are activities in which there is a large variation in breathing and heart rate. The role of public health nurse in health or active aging. Public health nurses have an important position in promoting physical activity for the active and healthy aging of society. Public health nurses should counsel the elderly in creating an exercise program suitable for their capacity. Nurses should make health assessment of the individual before and after exercise. It should be carried out in coordination with the psychotherapist and occupational therapist and participation of the elderly in physical activity. In conclusion, we need social, active and healthy older adults. Regular physical activity and exercise are most important protector of active and healthy aging. Developed countries with a high elderly population are investing more in physical activity program for the elderly. In today's studies, it is seen that the importance of exercise program is increasing in order to improve the cognitive, mental, and functional aspect of older adults. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Tuba.
Thank you
for your presentation. If anyone has any questions regarding to Tuba's presentation, they can ask her, or they can put their questions in the chat box. Okay, so moving ahead. Some of the listeners of this conference were Ihsan Ebbat, Project Management, Lebanese French University, Erbil, Iraq. Thank you for joining us, Ihsan. And some other listener, Khalifa Al-Hamamida, Public Law Department, Kuwait University, Kuwait City. Thank you for joining us. This brings us to the end of today's conference. Thank you, everyone. With great pleasure and enthusiasm, I would like to conclude that the conference was a great success. Many people have contributed in different ways to turn this event into a smoothly running conference with very interesting presentations. This conference has resulted in good discussions and networking. I owe my gratitude to all the presenters and patient listeners of this conference and the coordinators and the whole staff of Eurasia Research for their constant support. I would also like to thank all the universities and institutes who have sponsored their participants and people who are directly or indirectly contributed in the smooth conduct of this conference. These are some of our upcoming conferences. Eurasia Research conducts conferences around the world. In the month of September and October, we have the conferences in the following cities: London, Rome, Istanbul, Athens, Budapest, Lisbon, Istanbul, and Dubai. Please refer the conferences to your friends and colleagues. I would like to know feedback from the participants for today's conference. Hakan, would you like to share something with us?
No, thank you.
Okay. Tuba, would you like to share?
No, thank you.
Okay. Ahulnath?
Yes, it was well organized and well managed, and and I would like to thank you for including me and in a very short notice, I believe. Thank you for the great work as well, Divya, hosting everything.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ahulnath. Nanjiang, would you like to give your feedback? We couldn't hear your voice.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes. You're audible now.
I don't have anything. I just want to say thank you, and I really enjoyed the conference today.
Thank you so much for joining the conference. Vikra, would you like to share your views? Any feedback for us?
I don't think I have like any feedback, but I would like to express my gratitude and also appreciation to Eurasia to have me as one of the researchers or the attendees. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone. It was a great conference and have a great day ahead. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye.